This submitted manuscript explores the neuroscience of maladaptive rumination and how to disrupt dopamine-driven overthinking loops. Let's just jump right into the constructive critique.
I am entirely on board with starting right away because, well, the assertion that willpower cannot overcome the brain's dopamine-driven overthinking loop requires a lot more nuance to be logically bulletproof.
It really does. And I mean, to be fair to the author, the premise they build leading up to that claim is actually fascinating.
Oh, definitely.
They make this highly compelling case that overthinking is essentially like a chemical addiction. They explain how the brain releases these tiny hits of dopamine during imagined problem solving.
Right, exactly.
So when you're lying awake at 3 a.m., having an imaginary argument with your boss, your brain is actually rewarding you for it because it thinks you're doing productive survival work.
Which is just a brilliant way to frame the biology of anxiety. I mean, it removes the shame from the reader by explaining the underlying mechanics.
Yeah, but then the author states that because of this intense dopamine drive, trying to use willpower to stop yourself from thinking is completely unrealistic.
And that is exactly where the weakness lies. Framing willpower as completely unrealistic because of the dopamine flood creates a major logical contradiction within the manuscript itself.
Wait, a contradiction how?
Well, later in the text, the author asks the reader to execute conscious, effortful strategies. Things like cognitive diffusion or the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique.
Oh, right, the sensory stuff.
Exactly. And those inherently require a massive amount of willpower to initiate, especially when the amygdala is actively hijacked. You can't say willpower is useless on page 10 and then demand massive willpower on page 15.
I see what you mean. It's a bit like saying a swimmer caught in a riptide shouldn't use their muscles at all because the current is simply too strong.
That is a great analogy.
Like, yes, the current is overpowering, but surely muscle is still needed, right? It just has to be applied in a different direction.
Exactly. You swim parallel to the shore. But let me push back on the author's side for a second, because I want to make sure we are giving constructive advice. If the brain is actively being hijacked by the amygdala and dopamine is flooding the system, you really can't just will yourself out of a neurochemical cascade in that exact second.
Right, you can't will the cascade to immediately halt.
Right, but you absolutely need willpower to initiate a secondary action. And so the suggestion I have for the author is to clarify the timeline and the function of willpower.
So redefine it for the reader?
Exactly. Don't write willpower off entirely. Redefine it not as an immediate break against the chemical flood, but as the steering wheel. It's the steering wheel needed to initiate the long-term somatic exercises that eventually calm the nervous system.
I really like that framing. Willpower is terrible at suppression, but entirely necessary for redirection.
Yeah.
How would you suggest the author weave that into the text? Give me a concrete example.
Well, they already used this great Ferrari stuck in neutral metaphor. To revise this, they could explicitly state something like, okay, write this down. Willpower cannot immediately stop the roaring V8 engine of the default mode network while the gas pedal is stuck.
Okay, yeah.
However, willpower is the necessary force required to consciously shift the car into a different gear, such as initiating a sensory grounding technique, so the vehicle can move out of the danger zone.
Oh, I love that adjustment. It respects both the rigid biology of the brain and, like, the reader's lived experience. It empowers them by reminding them they still hold the gear shift.
Exactly. It resolves the contradiction and shifts the focus from a helpless diagnosis to engineering agency.
Okay, so if willpower is just the steering wheel that gets us to initiate a solution, what exactly happens in the engine when we finally shift gears?
That is the perfect segue to the next section.
Right, because this leads us right into the somatic solutions. The text introduces two great therapeutic interventions: cognitive diffusion, which is like taking off virtual reality goggles, and somatic experiencing, like splashing cold water on your face.
Both of which are highly effective.
They are. But the transition from diagnosing the dopamine addiction loop to proposing these somatic interventions leaves a pretty significant gap in explaining how these physical techniques effectively override the brain's chemical cravings.
That is a crucial topic sentence right there. The weakness is that the manuscript brilliantly establishes that the brain rewards itself with dopamine for imaginary problem solving.
Yeah, tiny little hits of dopamine.
Right, but when it introduces the solutions, like focusing on physical textures or cold water, It completely fails to explain how these sensory inputs successfully compete with the dopamine deficit that happens when the overthinking stops.
Exactly, because if the brain is addicted to the dopamine hits of overthinking, won't taking off the VR goggles just plunge the brain into chemical withdrawal?
Yes, exactly.
Like, why would the brain accept a cold splash of water when it wants the dopamine of rumination? Realistically, the texture of a cotton shirt is incredibly boring compared to a high-stakes imaginary argument.
Right, the brain is going to say, I don't care about this fabric. I want to go back to winning that shower argument from 6 years ago.
Yes, that felt rewarding. It gave me a sense of control.
And that is the exact hurdle the reader will face. So my suggestion here is to tie the therapeutic interventions directly back to the neurological mechanisms introduced earlier.
The prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, the default mode network.
Exactly. Show, rather than just state, exactly why a strong physical signal forces the chemical loop to break. The brain has strict processing bottlenecks.
So it's an issue of biological bandwidth. How would you give the author a concrete example of bridging that gap?
I would suggest adding a brief explanatory bridge right when introducing the somatic overrides. They could write something like, because the brain's default mode network cannot process overwhelming real-world sensory data and imaginary scenarios simultaneously, splashing ice-cold water on your face forces a hard system reboot.
Wow, a hard system reboot.
Right, and they can continue, it effectively starves the default mode network of its imagined problem-solving dopamine, redirecting blood flow forcefully back to the prefrontal cortex by demanding immediate attention to physical survival signals.
I mean, that elevates the cold water from just being a distraction technique to a biological imperative.
Yeah, the brain simply cannot ignore ice water. It registers it as a survival situation.
It just doesn't have the processing power to maintain the imaginary argument while the body is screaming, hey, we are freezing.
Exactly. It demystifies the panic. It turns a terrifying emotional storm into a simple plumbing problem. You're just redirecting the water pressure.
Which is super comforting to a reader. It removes the moral failing. Okay, so that leads us perfectly into the final major area for improvement.
The outside advice section.
Yes. Now that the chemical mechanisms and the solutions are tightly linked, we have to look at how the author critiques the phrase, just stop thinking.
Oh, they hate that phrase.
They do. But the dismissal of the common advice to just stop thinking risks alienating readers by categorizing it merely as an annoyance, rather than dissecting why it is a structural impossibility that requires translation.
That is a fantastic point. The weakness here is that the text treats just stop thinking as a shallow, unscientific judgment, but it doesn't reconcile this with its own later advice to physically, cut the stream of thoughts.
Right. The author's own advice is essentially just a highly sophisticated, scientifically accurate way of stopping thinking.
Exactly. By calling the advice totally unrealistic without unpacking the intent behind it, the author misses a crucial opportunity. They need to build a bridge for the reader between what people say and what the brain actually needs.
Because when a friend says just relax or stop thinking, they see a real problem. They see you spinning your wheels. They just don't have the clinical language to say, hey, execute a somatic override to starve your default mode network.
Exactly. They are diagnosing the right symptom, but prescribing an impossible cure. So, the suggestion is to reframe just stop thinking, not as a completely hollow phrase, but as a fundamental misunderstanding of cognitive diffusion.
So we shift the paradigm.
Yes, show that the flawed advice to stop is actually better understood as an invitation to detach. You don't suppress a thought, you detach your attention from it.
Okay, give me a concrete example of how the author could rewrite that specific critique in a manuscript.
Sure. When critiquing the advice, the author could add something like, when someone tells you to just stop thinking, they are asking you to perform an impossible neurological task, commanding your prefrontal cortex to magically shut down an amygdala hijacking.
Which we've established is impossible.
Right. So the text would continue, the true evolution of stopping is not suppression, but redirection. You don't tell the brain to stop, you tell it to look elsewhere, which is precisely why taking off the cognitive VR goggles and touching a textured surface works where the command to stop fails.
That framing is so much more constructive. You validate the frustration of the overthinker because being told to stop is super annoying. but you upgrade their perspective.
Exactly. You give them the internal tools to translate clumsy advice into clinical action. It brings the whole manuscript full circle.
It really does. It's a remarkably tight logical through line once those structural gaps are closed. All right, let's briefly recap the three main actionable takeaways for the author.
Sounds good?
First, you have to nuance the role of willpower, so it serves as the initiator of recovery, the steering wheel, rather than a failed brake against dopamine.
Second, explicitly connect the mechanics of the somatic solutions to how they disrupt the default mode network and those dopamine loops. Explain that hardware bottleneck.
And third, evolve the critique of just stop thinking to show how cognitive diffusion actually serves as the successful scientific translation of that flawed advice. It's about redirection, not suppression.
Exactly. We highly encourage the listener to revise these specific physiological and structural arguments, try out some of the concrete framing examples we discussed, and submit the updated material back for further critique.
Absolutely. The foundational research is excellent. It just needs these structural realignments to maximize the reader's agency. We can't wait to read the next draft.